we have a one-page capability statement, and one of the learning things that I had to really shift on was a lot of our work. We started out on the corporate side, and we still do a good amount of work on that. But the approach to marketing is really different, whereas on the corporate side it was more about who knows us and our knowledge of our craft, which that's still important on the government, clearly. But having a problem that we're going to solve and articulating that really clearly has really been the approach that we take when marketing with the government. So we do our research on, what specific, problem is that agency struggling with, and what part of our work could we do to help remediate that.
So you highlight, very good. And if you're going to be doing teaming, you're going to be pursuing teaming, you can even develop materials that are directed towards teaming, because then it is not so much what can I do for you, it's what can we do together. So there is another language that you would use in marketing materials. I had a meeting once with a small business, and they walked in and they started to set up a laptop to show me a film, and I was like, oh no. Do you entertain PowerPoint presentations in meetings that you have with small businesses? Do you prefer that they do not do that?
On the federal side, when we set up meetings with small businesses, you all are not the only one that's doing the research. We are going to get in contact with any other agencies that we think that need to hear your pitch. So what we can promise you is about 15 minutes of fame. Don't waste the contracting officer's time. So you should not come with all the electronics and gadgets to set up, because the problem is if you try to run a PowerPoint or a presentation and there's a technology problem, you're never going to get that 15 minutes again. And everyone will sympathize with you around the table, but you don't get your message out. So just come prepared to talk about what goods and services you offer. It's always really good if you've looked at the forecast to know what we're thinking about buying. We update those forecasts quarterly, and technically that's the only time you can talk to a contracting officer is before the procurement has actually hit the street. So you need to get in before the procurement has hit the street, and then you can ask a lot of questions. Talk to us about how you can help us meet our goals, and our goals are posted on our website. We're big now into sustainability, innovation, environmental excellence, and those kinds of things. We do an awful lot of training also. So if you see things in the paper about the federal government, if you have a training company or you do human resources things, you can help us with some problems that we have, because if you all have been keeping up, we're going to do some training, okay? We do some training, okay? We always yearly do diversity training, EEO training, ethics training, security and awareness kinds of training. We have a need for that. A lot of those buys are made on the local level. We just buy off of generally GSA schedules. If you're a small business, we can do a sole source set aside. So those are opportunities that don't necessarily get posted anywhere because it's in the federal mandate. However, if you say, hi, Stephanie, I do this, I can tell you who the people are who would be buying those, and they would generally contact you. You need to be able to accept the government purchase card, because we buy and pay a lot off of purchase cards. Most federal employees can buy up to $3,000. Some contracting officers can buy up to an unlimited amount of money on a purchase card.
Mary?
So yeah, leave your electronic gadgets at home. Okay.
Should they set up a PowerPoint to meet with you, or?
You know what, I think it's not the best use of your time if you get in front. I mean, the reality is that, yes, if you get 15 to 45 minutes or an hour with the chief procurement officer, myself, or other people in our office, we will look at it. I just don't think it's the best use of your time, because in addition to, I think that's what's so special about this workshop in terms of talking about the elevator pitch. Quite frankly, we have a process. We don't give contracts, we award contracts.
Right.
So what's real is that you're not going to leave our office with contracts. So there's no amount of bells, whistles, there's a process. We are spending taxpayer dollars, and to that end, we make processes as transparent as possible. So I think you have to have a brief pitch about yourself, and that's why it's got to be strong and solid, and this workshop is so valuable. But then I think you have to utilize the rest of your time learning information about how we do it, how do you get to the next level, where are the forms, where do I start, what are the rules, what are the regulations? Because again, we can spend 45 minutes talking about you, but since I can't give you a contract, I award a contract.
Right.
When you leave, you may have more questions than you had, because I'm only going to get 10 minutes then, and so I'm going to talk about the rules and the regulations and the specification and the EDS, and I'm going to use all this jargon that you may not be familiar with. So we spent 45 minutes with your video and your PowerPoint, and you walk out thinking, what did she mean by this or that? So I think the key is focus on what you're learning here today about how do you give the most powerful sell in a short amount of time. And if you've done your homework, what we love to see is when folks come with very strategic questions about how to get to the next level. So that would be my recommendation. But bring it, we'll watch it. I just don't think it's the best use of your time.
Well, don't even bring it.
Yeah,
because
that's what I say, don't
it has to go through security, okay? You and it has to go through security.
So let me ask you, Lynn, best piece of advice on pitching and marketing to a federal agency, or one best piece of advice?
Do the follow-up. Definitely do the follow-up. And for all of the things that have been said today, I would have to say I've had to do each and every step that you've talked through. And when I've asked the question of my mentors and of other folks, once we've gotten the contract, once we've been awarded the contract, what made the difference? It was that we did each of the steps, that we were prepared. We had the certifications. The past performance was very, very strong, very important. But doing the follow-up, so it's all of these pieces. Just do each of the steps and take your time with it.
Julie?
Yeah, I would pretty much say ditto. I mean, really it's the follow-up and the persistence, some patience and understanding that, what the process is. It's not easy, and just really being very strategic and following up with and building those relationships.
Can I,
Yes,
before you go on, there was one other thing I did write down and I forgot to say.
Okay.
And that was one thing, Denise, that you talked about at the start, and that was focusing in on an agency. The importance of that, and I think, Denise, you talked through the number of agencies and the sub-agencies within. You really want to focus on one or two agencies, and no more than that, because you've got so many sub-agencies within. And so when you focus on that, you're not only limiting and narrowing your marketing efforts, but you're also letting them know that you are very serious about working in their agencies and working and cooperating and supporting that particular agency. And that is very, very powerful. So when you narrow it that way, really there's more than enough business within any one agency for 2 lifetimes, 2 or 3 lifetimes.
Definitely.
So you really don't have to say, well, I've got work in defense and energy and this and that and that. That does not build the best case.
Julie, do you want to add something?
Yeah, just to tag on to what Lynn is saying is that we also have what we call an ideal profile of work that we would look for. So, just whatever you can do to help the agency understand how they can utilize you, especially with us being an 8A firm and, a small business organization, women-owned, we're trying to help them, make it easy for them so that they can, work with us.
Don't be adverse to subcontracting.
Best way to get into federal contracts.
That's the best way. I do a lot of these, and 75% of the small businesses I meet want to be the prime contractor, especially in construction. Okay, there are no GSA construction contracts. Those are IDIQ contracts that come up every 5 to 7 years for renewal. So, and I often recommend subcontracting because all of our primes have to meet our 30% goals also. And that's the best way to get into the federal government, to get your own face-to-face time with that contracting officer. And that way, after they see your performance, then there are smaller things that happen that they can then begin to sole source their way to you because they've seen you be successful as a sub. So open your minds to that.
Okay, LaVerne, what's your best piece of advice?
I would kind of follow up on what we were saying earlier about doing your homework. It's just so important to really understand the market that you're really going after.